body likes it when you are paying attention to what's in your environment and acting accordingly.
I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrish.com or on Instagram at heathergrish. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe.
There are all kinds of people called visionaries on the planet. People love people like, Steve Jobs. Well, they used to love Elizabeth Holmes. People love visionaries because they think they can see something that other people can't. A visionary is someone who can see ahead. And indeed, that is one definition of a visionary. But when we think about vision, we have to consider what kind of vision we are talking about, because there are visions that one could have in the world around them. If you study the trends and patterns from the past to the present, then you can project out the trends of the future, barring any unforeseen circumstances that may come up outside of your knowledge or awareness. So you can develop vision and project the future in a lot of different ways. You can do that by studying different things. You can study where you work, the marketplace that you are in, the internal workings of the business that you're in, and what's happening with the people inside the business. There are all kinds of trends you can study and a whole science around that. Essentially, what people are doing is looking at dots in time, and they are predicting, well, how's this going to go? And some people are really good at it, especially now because we have computers to help us with all kinds of analyses. But it can be really frustrating when it comes to your own body. Do you have that vision for your own body? A lot of time when something doesn't go our way, we're having some issue with our body or in our health or in some creative endeavor. Well, maybe we aren't really paying attention to the trends and patterns of the body. And there are trends and patterns that happen in a body. If one could read them, if one knew all the data points involved, paid attention to those data points, would be able to connect those dots into the future. But we haven't been reading the body. We've forgotten all about it. I've always found it tricky in my clinical Ayurveda practice. A lot of time people go to their health practitioner or their doctor, and their doctor says, okay, you have this wrong with you and we don't know why, or okay, you're fine and there's nothing wrong with you. And you're thinking, but I don't feel well. And there's maybe not a lot of information there. So there's no looking into what's happening, what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And this is when people start Googling things because we're seeking. We want to understand more. We are looking for the data points. And this is cool because people are in a renaissance of learning about their bodies. And I think that's why yoga has gotten so popular, meditation, things like that. But how are you going to learn about your body? You're going to learn about your body from reading a book? You're going to learn about your body from having someone else tell you what to do with it? So one of the things that's required for legit learning is to develop your inner awareness or the body awareness and the way that that body interacts with the world around it. We're pretty good at paying attention to the world and all things outside of us, including thoughts about things that aren't even here right now. Our awareness as a human culture is so very external. So that means we're spending a lot of energy on the man and woman-made creations of the world, and we aren't spending as much time focusing on the inner self and how that is operating for many different reasons. Some of it just distraction. Other reasons that it could be happening are that things weren't feeling so good, so we got focused externally. Maybe there was sadness, pain, grief, or anger. All these human emotions, they don't feel good. And Lord knows people have been through some really difficult things. Oh, and well, we don't have to feel them if we focus outside of ourselves or in the future. So when that awareness has become tipped in the balance of the external or the future, we'll say, well, it has to be brought into a state of equilibrium. Not that you want to completely cut yourself off from the outside world, though that is often what the beginning stages of meditation will do. We take you out of your environment, we put you in a separate place so you can concentrate internally for a while. Like I've done going to ashrams or retreat centers and things like that. And that's good because if you've been in a place of too much external focus, you need to swing that pendulum back toward the self. But ultimately, you're going to want to come back to equilibrium where it's both the internal and the external. We need both. No one would be able to get anything done, grow any food, take care of your kids, keep the postal service running, things like that, if we didn't have people who are engaging in the outside world. And similarly, we don't want people so engaged in the outside world that they're forgetting about their inner selves. So I'm talking about developing the inner vision, awareness, and then perhaps there is a skill that is developed to spot the patterns and the trends in the body and understand how those are going to progress in the future, which is one of the things that we do in Ayurveda, because our disease process model in Ayurveda is 6 stages, because we're looking at things like doshas and things that are a little more subtle factors in health. And typically people aren't going to see a doctor until the stage 4. And there are things going on in your body earlier, in your feeling body. And in our English-speaking language, we don't have any validated methods or knowledge of how to understand the trends and patterns that are going on in the body that can go awry later if gone unchecked or when the environment triggers them. So there's this vision, which is like a flashlight, and this awareness. And there's this ability to spot the patterns in the body, which is more about dot connecting and projecting the future. You can tell where trends are going, but you actually cannot tell the future in any sort of concluding way. The future is always unknown, and well, that makes us very uncomfortable. We want to make sure we have control over things, don't we? Because we really don't like not having control. But we really can't control things because so many things are just bigger than we are. Our imaginations can take us very far as humans. We have the processing power to create many things, to go from the present moment to far out into the past. Using our creativity, we can go into the past, we can go into the future, we can go all these different places. We can imagine a whole world that is different than the world we are in today. We can also listen to other movements of our mind, right? So these dreams that come up, memory, or interpretations of reality. There are actually 2 powers to gain here. One is a knowing when you're in one of these states. So when you're imagining, when you're dreaming, when you're invoking a memory, or when you're in an interpretation of reality. Knowing when you are in something other than what I would call direct perception, which is the objective sensory processing experience of the present moment. Knowing when you're in something other than that is quite a power. So the first power here is having the awareness to know when you are not experiencing the present moment. The second power is then choosing to be in one of these states. So if you could choose the state, then you can impact the direction of movement that your mind goes into. So you can decide if you're going into the future or if you're going into the past or if you're staying right here, right now. And you can influence which dots get connected in your life, which patterns continue, and which ones get to change. This power is one of the big gifts of the human, though it's also a curse. Well, because all human power is both a gift and a curse. Direct perception is actually the most efficient cognitive function for the body. The body likes it when you are paying attention to what's in your environment and acting accordingly. These mind movements can actually be a source of stress for many. It takes a lot of energy to try to make the world a different way. To understand direct perception, we have to go to a simpler way of being. How the heck does a flower, a perennial, for example, that comes back every year, how does it know when to grow? Or when you plant a seed, how does it know when to sprout? How does it know when to happen? Because sometimes we're waiting for it to happen and it's not happening. And we're like, why is this taking so long? But what actually makes things happen and why they don't happen when we want them to happen is sort of a mystery and sort of not a mystery. If you're working on something new, say it's like a creative endeavor or something in your health, you have the seed that you've planted. But if you've planted a seed when it's winter and the ground is frozen, well, then that seed's not going to open up. It's not going to soften, take hold, and the ground may not even be available to receive it, right? If it's frozen. But if you plant it in the spring, when it's moist and the seed needs the moisture to soften, a certain amount of water, the right temperature, that seed needs to soften because of the density of its tissues, you'll get something different that happens. But seeds don't think ahead to when they will come to sprout. They don't recall the past. They simply get planted and wait for the environment to call them out, to follow their dharma. So what exactly is it that makes a seed open and sprout? Well, it needs all the right material inside to function. And once that happens, then it needs the right conditions. Not all seeds need the same things. Some seeds need very little water and are quick to shift. Some need just a little bit more heat, a little bit more water, and some actually need to be dried out first. Some seeds actually need to be pooped out of an animal's butt too. Things that have a lot of longevity sometimes can take a really long time to build, and that can be extremely frustrating for people. Whether that's starting a business, creating a family, or whatever you're trying to create in your life, it's all about the right conditions. This has to do with temperature and moisture and air pressure. So when you have the sun, it causes moisture to rise. More moisture causes expansion, mixing, and then increased temperatures cause these things to rise. And as the heat rises, there's a lifting of energy. That's what carries a sprout up when it cracks open. It's that sun and that light and that heat and that shift can happen that it can expand upwards towards the sun. Just as coolness and wetness can grow the roots downward toward the earth. We need both sun and earth. So it's not so mysterious, but the part that makes it mysterious is that we can't observe these things directly because they take time. So instead of focusing on how we can force things into being or taking shape or being sped up, perhaps the best thing to do is simply find the way it feels amazing to be inside your body. If you are the environment from which your creations are created from, you don't want your creations to happen from a place where you don't like how it feels inside you, because you are the environment from which it is occurring. And when that creation happens, you are part of the conditions that thing needs to continue. So if you are the environment and also the conditions that thing needs to continue, then why not just build everything from a place where you feel really good inside? To me, that's the luckiest and the smartest thing to do, because as you have to caretake for something, you can initiate it from a place where you feel good. Then this thing that needs you to care for it needs the you that is good, not some other you that feels like a struggle or joyless or knowing you can feel better physically or mentally. It needs you to be the you that is good. That's all it needs. All it needs. I know it's not fun to wait for things, especially in a world where the speed with which we get what we want is getting faster and faster each year. But you can find wisdom in the understanding that not everything grows in every environment, Sometimes we have to wait for the environment to shift or turn. You could plant a seed and wait 3 weeks to see a little shoot poke through the soil like the package says it would happen. But then maybe you don't get quite the weather that was expected or that seed needed. And maybe you got the weather a little bit later. And instead, that thing sprouts and shoots up a week later. It happens because of this turn in the weather. If you got too impatient, took the writing on the package so literally, well, you might fail to see what's going on right in front of you. Because environmental conditions can sometimes shift in a way that makes everything open up, even things you'd already given up on already. So when the environment shifts, it's actually a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. You can even explore new approaches in these opportunities, especially if things haven't been working out for you. These seasonal transitions from, say, like winter to spring or spring to summer, summer to fall, fall to winter. And there are other types of environmental shifts that happen too. See what they call out first. See what those shifts call out of you, especially if things have been out of balance. See what these new seasons call out of you. Just get curious. Like, what happens when this environmental factor changes? What parts of me come out? If I do the same thing and my environment changes, well, maybe what I was doing before could work. Because sometimes we're doing something we believe will produce a certain result in a specific season, but what we were doing really needed a different season in order to be successful in. Sometimes we're doing something completely irrelevant for that season, but when the season turns, it works. This is why it's so important to pay attention to the present moment. Even when you're cooking up big dreams and getting all creative, envisioning your future, know when you are imagining. Know when you are stuck in memory. Know when you are creating stories and interpretations. So ground yourself in direct perception. While your mind may think it's free and fun to be able to move all over the place, your body actually likes it better when you're in time, here now. In time, here now. Yes, the body loves that.
Rumi said, there are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground, and maybe you've been trying all of them. You want to feel strong and grounded, and at the same time, you want that creative energy to flow freely through you. But something seems to be preventing it, and you're sick of the struggle. Maybe you found a little taste of the surrender that you're looking for while doing yoga, or meditating, or on a retreat somewhere. But how's it possible to find in real life? If you're ready to tap into the wisdom of the body and you want to build the feeling of community, I have a group for you, Body Church. Well, it's not really a church. It's a self-care membership program focused on your body, all of it. It's a gathering, a circle of the support you have been craving for you to dive into the intelligent functioning and poetry of your body more deeply than you've ever been able to before. If you want to be part of this very unique group program, head over to my website at heathergrish.com and see if we have a spot for you to try it out. That's heathergrych.com. We're starting to enroll people right now. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrych.com. That's heathergrych.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.